parents instead moving forward. So our timeline, last year, during the pandemic, during remote, we started meeting together as one building for the first time. So it was, an interesting time, an exciting time, and a great time for me personally to, meet everyone at once through a screen. But we started meeting together as one school for the first time. Students were obviously still placed into Elementary East and Elementary West. This year is when we really kicked off the unification planning, looking at our values, looking at our practices, and we're continuing to plan together. We still have roles that do both buildings, but students are still obviously placed in Elementary East and Elementary West. Next year, we are looking to reorganize the building and really have it function as one big school rather than two schools within one, and have students placed as one in, building grade level heterogeneous classrooms. And while there has been a lot of work internally, we've also done a bunch of communication with our various departments and schools throughout the district, just looking at, what will this do for transportation, instruction with teaching and learning, communicating with intermediate about, the possible change of third dual language. So we've really been communicating with the different departments, every step of the way. So with that.
And I want to end just on highlighting what Mr. Black shared there at the end, is really focusing on, there are a lot of components to this. It's a lot of gears moving at once: transportation, operations and facilities, technology, teaching and learning, human resources. We are talking to everybody. It's a group planning, and I just appreciate the support by the administrative team. Obviously, the support of the Board of Education, because we know in our core that this is going to be a wonderful thing to allow our students moving forward. And I'm just excited to be part of it, and I'm excited for our team. And I'm excited for the future moving forward, because we're going to be one great school under one roof as Woodland Elementary. So with that, thank you. And if there are any questions that we might be able to answer at this time, we are obviously open.
Great presentation.
Yeah.
Questions?
I have one. So, it's great because we're going to have, like big school opportunities. But if I'm a parent and I hear we're going to have an elementary school with more than 1,200 kids, that feels really big. So how are we thinking about making it feel small? Like big school opportunities, small school feel. So, yeah.
Sure, that's a great question. One, I can't answer in detail at this point, but I can tell you we have a subcommittee that is focused on PLCs, is focused on data. So the thought process behind that is what I'm seeing, what I'm reading, and what I'm talking to the teachers is these core teachers being together in learning pods, if you will, where they're working together. It's not a school within a school, but it's teachers within that grade level working together and functioning as one to keep that, because like a house system similar to that format in the past. So to keep that core together, so they feel that sense of school, they feel that sense of community. So as we continue through, I'm sure Dr. Casey will be continuing to update the board in regards to that, and more information will be coming as well. Great question, thank you.
I have a question. I'm just wondering how and when you'll be communicating with parents about the change?
So communications have actually already started. We've spent our SIP Day, School Improvement Day in September, and in October, we share in our weekly newsletter of what we're focusing on, the unification. It was part of our welcome back, so we've been putting a little bit tomorrow for our weekly newsletter. I'm including this presentation as well as information in regards to it. We've talked as an administrative team about our communication for what does it mean for a parent coming from Elementary East or Elementary West and to elementary. And we've talked about, obviously, written communication as well as some forums, so they're allowed to hear us present so they know the changes, depending on, obviously, the circumstances we're under at that time. But we certainly are keeping that at the forefront of our thought on how this affects our families.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Yeah, good job.
I want to thank both of them and their entire school. It's not a small endeavor that they've taken on. And they've not, as you can see tonight, they took it on with great enthusiasm. So that's the best part of it. They're really honest and genuinely excited about it. We know that it's what's best for students. We don't need to operate great the way we operated 10 years ago. We're not the same place we were 10 years ago. It was very appropriate then, and now we have some new ways we can look at things. So we're really excited about it, and I know the leadership and all the teachers there are going to do an amazing job. So we will definitely keep you posted. We wanted to tell you about this tonight first, the board first, and then now we'll start doing some larger communications out to our families and the community. So the second item I have tonight is another great item. We, as you know, have an amazing health office staff and are blessed in this community. And we talk about it all the time behind the scenes, but we thought tonight was a great night to bring it in front of everybody and thank these amazing employees publicly. So with that, I had the privilege of working with them for 10 years, and now Dr. Maychuk works with them. So Dr. Maychuk's going to talk a little bit tonight about our health office staff and everything, just thanking them for this last year.
Good evening. It's an honor to have been invited by Dr. Casey to present this incredible group of professionals to the board tonight and to thank them, thank you, for the incredible work that they do in our schools each day. As far back as March of 2020, the team began work on the development of a variety of procedures and protocols designed to make it safer for our students and staff to come back to school and to come back safely. For example, feedback from our nurses was critical in developing our self-certification questions and procedures. Feedback from our health assistants was integral to creating a communication plan between each school office and home regarding timely communication procedures around positive and suspected positive cases. Prior to COVID, the health office team had just finished developing a procedure manual to systematize and document various health office treatments across the district. The nurses had also started scheduling in-house AED and CPR training classes for all of our colleagues, which allowed more staff members to learn these critical skills at a fraction of the cost for what we were paying outside instructors. Those classes were held all throughout the summer of 2020 and again this past August. Currently, my conversations with the members of this team focus on mitigation strategies and navigating the ever-changing guidance from Lake County Health Department, Centers for Disease Control, and Illinois Department of Public Health. The single thread that runs through every one of these conversations is how to keep our kids and our staff members safe. When we keep them safe, how can we keep them safe in school? The dedication and professionalism of the members of our health office is palpable during every one of the conversations I have with them. I'm proud to lead this team and honored to be lucky enough to get to work so closely with these folks every single day. It's now my privilege to introduce you to our district lead nurse, Ms. Ethel Cabalfin, who will recognize the members of our team here tonight. Dr. Little, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure how this worked.
Oh, okay. I kind of hurt my knee, so I'm limping a little bit.
Thank you so much for having us here. It's definitely an honor to be here. Again, I'm Ethel Walton, your district nurse, and your elementary nurse. It's a definite privilege to be a part of our health office family. We are not just a team, but we are a family. And all of the health assistants here and nurses, and those who are absent, and all of our substitutes have been really key in providing excellent holistic care to our students, staff, and community. We believe in prevention through education, so we do a lot of education also on a daily basis. And every single day, from the bottom of all of our hearts, I think I can say that thank you for all you do. You make a difference with every encounter, and that will never be forgotten. And I'm a little emotional because I know I see them working so hard every single day. And we really thank you. We do have some members who are not here, but I will be going ahead and announcing your names, and also those who are not here. But thank you again for all of you do. And it's definitely a pleasure, and thank you all for all of your support, the board members, administration, the staff. We couldn't do this without you. Okay. All right, then, as we call you up, Dr. Little is here to give you your certificates. All right, so we have Robin Payne from Smith middle school, our
Diploma stuff.
Give the mail.
That's right. Thank you. It is easier. Laura Vesco is absent today. Uncle Baldwin is right here. Denise Garduno, our awesome Mary Gilpin-Salon. Amy Dranka, our other health assistant from elementary, who is absent today. Amy. Charlene Biondo, our intermediate nurse. Nancy Wood, our intermediate nurse. Our intermediate health assistant. Michelle Newby, who is absent today. Jennifer Schulin, our Sandy Krishek is our one-on-one nurse at middle school. Anita English, who is our District 50 float nurse. Marsali, our awesome and Kara Edgeworth, who is our nurse from primary. And just as a quick recap, we just want you to know that on a daily basis, we do see anywhere between 50 to 100 or more kids in a day. And we've been tracking close to 200 or so more students now. And just we're doing it together as a team. So thank you all for your support, and thank you for all you do. Thank you. If the health office staff would like to come up here and I can get your picture. Yeah. You're welcome to stay, but it's up to you.
Did you want me to grab Brooke or no?
If you'd like to be in the picture.
No, I don't want to intrude on the group picture.
Kind of like your thing. You should go.
Will you want to go with me then? We'll do a quick.
We'll do a quick one.
Yeah.
We can get everyone set up and just, you guys can just jump right in.
Okay.
Do you have cameras around your house?
A couple.
So we do too, but we're getting a screen in Fortnite. We will be the first.
Yeah.
Sorry. What else is there? Yeah, you have a patio, a lot of patios.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I know Tom is. They're doing their job. This spring.
Oh, yeah?
But they're going to do there's open one.
Yeah. No, we haven't enjoyed ours as much as I hoped we would, but yes, there's so much rain. It's not like wind, so much wind.
You have a windy one. Like, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It's really good.
How does the first work? So,
The best parts of the job.
Yes.
More of a hawk. Okay. So, Dr. Casey, anything else before we move forward?
No, I just want to thank both groups that were here tonight. Again, thanking the health office staff. They've been just amazing during this crisis. Can't imagine what they're doing every day and every night. You know, this doesn't just happen during the day. They're doing a lot of work in the evenings. Contact tracing doesn't happen between certain hours. Dr. Maychuk and the team are
working many, many extra hours in the evening, so they're just doing an amazing job, and I want to thank them.
Yeah, thank you and the rest of the team as well. Great showcase, great choices tonight, thank you. Next up, we have citizen statements. Do we have anyone signed up? No citizen statements, okay. Then we'll move forward with the consent agenda. That's in your packet. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote.
Lizzie?
Yes.
Renee? Corey?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Brianna?
Yes?
Carla?
Aye.
Joe?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, the action item we have tonight is recognition and appreciation of school staff for American Education Week. Can I get a motion to approve the proclamation for American Education Week?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Just for everyone's reference, American Education Week will be celebrated the week of November 15th through the 19th. Any questions or any further discussion on this?
I will read a proclamation.
Yes. I think we have to vote and then you read it. So without, if there is no further discussion, we'll take the vote.
Renee? Corey?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Brianna?
Yes?
Carla?
Aye.
Joe?
Yes.
Lizzie?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
A proclamation for American Education Week. Whereas public schools are the backbones of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they'll need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas all education employees, be they certified staff, educational support personnel, administrators, or volunteers, work to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas schools are the heart of the community, bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders and elected officials in a common enterprise. Now therefore, we the Woodland School District 50 Board of Education so hereby proclaim November 15th through 19th as the observance of American Education Week.
Okay, great, thank you. And we'll all sign that to make it official. So, do you have a special pin for us to sign, or? Okay. Okay, then we'll move forward to reports. First report is an update and discussion on our superintendent search. As everybody knows, or many of us know, Dr. Casey is retiring at the end of the school year, so we have to work hard to find somebody that can fill those shoes. So we have Alan Moultley here tonight from IASB, who's leading our search for a new superintendent, and he'll provide an update.
Thank you, Dr. Little. Just appreciate being able to give an overview of how the process has gone since you employed IASB to begin the search, which actually started back in August. And so just as kind of a review for the public as well as for you, what we did is to begin developing an announcement of vacancy brochure, which is the way to actually promote the vacancy and promote the district itself to potential candidates. We developed that with information about the district, such as demographic information, financial information, programmatic information, as well as information about the communities that we serve. In addition to information about the district, we included a timeline and also requirements for application itself, such as what any interested applicant would need to submit and what kind of a time frame that would follow. Also, in the announcement of vacancy brochure was a profile of the next superintendent that was developed through input from an online survey that staff and stakeholders submitted, and we had a very good response rate with that. In addition to questionnaire information that was provided to us by you individual board members, we put together a list of ideal candidate characteristics and traits that were very common among all of the responses that were provided to us. We publicized the position through a variety of educational sites, job bank sites that are linked nationwide to different educational organizations. And through that, we had the application also then opened through the Frontline system, which formerly was AppleTrack, and is now part of Frontline. And it was open for about 5 weeks, which is generally the amount of time that we have an application open, online application open, following the completion of the announcement of vacancy brochure. During that time, we had 33 applications that were actually started and submitted. That's a really good number these days. We're finding the number of applicants for superintendent searches varies, especially in the suburban area, anywhere from 20 up to 50 or 60. So you were in the range that was a very good number to be submitted for next year's employment. Of those 33, 26 of them are screened as being complete. And so Dr. Patricia Vineyard, who's my colleague, she and I together read all of the applications, and we read them independent of each other. And from that, our goal was to develop a slate of 6 candidates to present to you as a board for interviewing. Prior to presenting the slate, we were able to narrow that down to a group of approximately 11 or 12 candidates that we did screening interviews with, where we were able to meet with them via Zoom. We had a variety of questions we asked them that were geared towards their potential for being a viable candidate here at Woodland. We also narrowed that group down based on kind of a multifaceted determination, which included the levels of experience. We wanted to make sure that we had candidates who had K-8 administrative experience and or teaching experience. We also looked at the size of districts from which they are currently employed or that they have been a part of, and also the recommendations that come from their current supervisors, whether that be a board of education, a board president, or a superintendent. We had a variety of applicants, a large number of superintendent and assistant superintendents that applied, in addition to some principals, some directors, a variety of other positions too. And we narrowed it down to a core group of superintendents and assistant superintendents that were seeking to be considered for this position. So those are the ones that we interviewed in that group of 11 to 12, and we narrowed it down by consensus between Dr. Vineyard and myself to a group of 6, a slate of 6 that has been presented to the Board of Education. The next step is for the board to be conducting the interviews, initial interviews, as well as establishing a process for final interviews of 2 to 3 finalists that the board deems likely to be considered as best choice for the next superintendent. Also a part of that may very likely be a site visit to the finalists' current place of employment to have the board get a chance to actually go into his or her current district and get a sense of what they would do subjects. So that's kind of a quick overview of the process. Generally, we look at about a 4-month time frame for superintendent searches, and that's pretty much right where we are. And the goal has been to, by December, to at least get to the point where an individual would be at the point where you would be ready to offer the position. So that's still our goal, is to, by December, January the latest, would be to have a superintendent employed where they would be able to begin some of the transitioning that would be required to come in successfully. And I'm not going to say fill Dr. Casey's shoes, because from what I've been able to tell about the district, there's a lot of shoes to fill here. Whoever's coming in is going to be coming into a great opportunity. I know that just from what I've been able to tell about the district. So appreciate your time to provide an overview, and we'll see you again when we get to the next step.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for all the work you're doing. Any questions before Alan heads out? Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Okay.
Thank
See ya. We'll be in touch. Okay. Anything further on the superintendent search before we move forward? Okay, then we'll, in your package, you have a written report, and also we'll have a presentation on the sustainability committee. You're going to do it? Okay.
There you go.
tonight. Just a quick backdrop where this.
Do you want to, I'm sorry, do you want to introduce yourself for the people on the?
John Beard, Director of Operations and Facilities for the school district. And this plan that we're presenting tonight came from the Finance, Facilities, and now Sustainability Committee, where that group was tasked with trying to produce a product that would help us identify a plan for the next few years to give some focus to our efforts. And we'll discuss strategic plan, sustainability definition, sustainability opportunities and recommendations. In the strategic plan, we covered just to show that the work we're doing aligns directly with the strategic plan, specifically Goal 6, focus on sustainability as facilities are updated. So we align very well with the mission. A definition. I wanted to spend a minute on this because you say sustainability and people go in a lot of directions with it. They want to focus on the trees and the water. They want to focus on fossil fuels. They want to focus on chemical use, putting down drains. And I look at this really as it's an environmental and ecological footprint. It's not just one thing. There's a lot of things we do in our everyday life. I'll be talking about behaviors a few times that we can do within our world that can be translated out to other departments as we grow the work to be more environmentally, ecologically friendly. We can work on a lot of these things at the same time. We're not trying to, we can't save the world with all of our work, but we can definitely make impacts on each one of these things individually. And part of what influences the work we do, these are just examples, because we have, school code is we have health safety work, our own policies, then we get into all the construction code, fire code, everything else that impacts the products and how we use the products and what we have to use. So we have to abide by those, obviously, but we have to see where we can make any improvements into what the guidelines tell us we have to be doing. So some opportunities for us. We have educational opportunity. We're trying to also focus this work around any place we can bridge that work to the classroom potential. We're not outlining programs here today, but it's about trying to have that lens of where can we bring this to a classroom potential. So the Solar Fox is just a product name from Siemens. That's for our current solar panels at South Campus and up here Intermediate that we could be incorporating into the schools to show community and the classroom, or the teachers can use that product to help build up any programs they might be using. There are national programs. The Energy Star program is another one that it doesn't really do anything for us, but it is good marketing and it is a good benchmark. It doesn't produce energy by itself. The program is really more about measurement and developing where your standards are amongst pure light buildings. LEED is a common term used. That's more of a commercial setting product, but there are components, that's why I put the O&M portion up there of it, that we can incorporate to help measure our practices against one of the more sought-after certifications out there for sustainability. Some of the larger ones, we've already done some solar. We've already got an RFP. I'm going to offer some more conversation for solar at middle school. And that's obviously a good program. We'll continue to grow that. Wind is probably not a commercial use for us, but definitely could be an educational component by the size and the type of equipment to be used, so kids can understand that math and science behind that. Policies, again, getting into where do we want to bring our processes to a policy level. I've been in districts where that can happen and it serves it well for that particular community. Otherwise, it's kept at the department level. This is something we want to be talking about over the course of this next year and see where and how we can apply the collective work that we're doing. Program resources, ComEd, they just did their facility assessment for us. That's about a 30,000-foot view look at the buildings. The retro commissioning would be the next step if we move forward with that. Oops, sorry. Give me a recommendation. The retro commissioning is a process. It's a 6-month to year-long process. This is where they're on the ground. They're in your building, in your equipment, measuring performance, measuring it through the night to make sure that the system says it goes on and off at these times, at these temperatures, and that's what's actually happening in the world. So you get better data back and more focused data.
And who does that, John?
That is ComEd.
Oh, ComEd does that too.
Yeah, they're engineers. They outsource the engineering part of it, but it's through ComEd's program.
Okay.
Practices and behaviors. Getting back to a lot of what we do is just how we want to do it and how we can change our behaviors. and expectations, so we can't control our chemical use, we can't control our volumes of use, we can develop better, tighter standards than that. We can work on our carbon footprint between our buses and mowing and help our internal procedures about when and how we're doing things, like we can reduce some mowing areas, bring back some natural vegetation, some spaces that aren't play spaces, they're just kind of a green field or a green spot that we don't really have to be spending time mowing. We can do some education on parents and buses, just educate them about how much impact they have on our environment just by not utilizing our bus services. And then purchasing, that's an approach we can use, especially in the operations world. We do a lot of buying. So where we buy, what we buy, how we group our buys, and so we group our trips to the district are just some of the small practices that we can develop on our end. And then there's wetlands. We have wetlands at each site. I don't know if you know that. They're varying in size. So there's wetland management that we can be improving on to help that become more of an educational opportunity at each of the sites, as well as just improve the wetland management. So what are some recommendations? Well, a lot of it we just have to cover. The solar box is one, the ComEd, we have already completed that. We're going through those reports now. The retro commissioning, I would like to have that off the ground by the end of the month, end of November, that is now. There is a $25,000 requirement that you do 25,000 of their recommendations. I've done this report before. That ends up being work that you were going to be doing anyways. Okay? That's your labor, it's your parts, it's your pieces, it's everything you're going to do. So $25,000 spent in my world is not hard to achieve on our size equipment and equipment components. PJN is a direct response that we are part of already. That's what we have in the recommendation, or in the opportunities. We're already part of that program. That's a direct response program where we cut back energy if we're called upon by the utilities to roll back our energy if there's a load on the grid for a particular day. That program is very manageable. We've been part of that program this district for a couple of decades, I want to say. It's been part of this district for a long time. The DLR is a new program. I just got data on that tonight, actually back from the contractor. That one we're going to look at further because it's a little more impactful program on when and how they call for the power shutdowns. So there may be a little more impact on the schools, there's more impact on our departments, so they have some, not so much on the cost benefit side, so we got to evaluate that a little closer. We're continuing to tighten up our heating and adjusting our heating and cooling schedules as much as we can. We work with Siemens, if not weekly, or if not daily, it's weekly. We keep looking at our programming. We'll be looking at our chemical use, seeing how much we can go to our natural products versus true pesticides. We're looking at our mowing areas as well as our purchasing practices. Those are basically, it's about tightening up our process in-house today. So when we get to next year, when we come back to you, we want to report to you what was successful, how did we achieve, how do we measure that, how can we show all that. Do a report for you, and then start looking at the how we benchmark this year. See how we can start looking at ways to potentially bring our policies in alignment, or not. It's just a way to help update, to help to see if we need to update policies to make a little more teeth in a certain activity or a certain task that we need. And then of course go for the Energy Star as well next year. With solar potentially being moved up to this year, with the RFP that's out, we may be able to pull the LED lighting up also this year, or to next year. That's yet to be seen. Then of course year 3, we can start looking at propane buses, electric buses. We start looking at some of those bigger technologies and larger costs. One of the things I'm actually a little more excited about is the geothermal technology. We've got buildings that are hitting their quarter life, if you will, or hitting the 25-year, 30-year window of the buildings, especially intermediate and middle schools, and they've got large fields alongside those buildings. And as you start to update your mechanicals, this would be a potential place that we can look at another step beyond solar, go to the geothermal approach to help the mechanicals. So that's
Questions, board members?
I like it.
I don't have a question. It's just really exciting.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed the ideas that you brought to the Finance, Facilities, and Sustainability Committee. What I like is that these are actionable steps. It's not just words. It's not just talking, right? These are things we can do in a way that we can roll out that just makes sense and save our community money, right? Over the long term, solar saves us money. It reduces our energy that we have to buy from outside, and it ends up being net gains for our community, which I just think is outstanding. Also, it's a great gain for our students because they get to see us doing this, and they get to see how we value it, right? So the fact that it's environmentally sustainable and it's financially sustainable, it's fiscally sustainable, is just a win-win. And it's just been really exciting to see the different ways that we can start to make this happen. And we already have. I mean, we've already been doing quite a bit, but you know, the next level, the next phase of it, it's just outstanding.
Very good positive.
Any further questions or comments from the board? Yeah, thank you. Again, great presentation, very informative. I know from working with my own children how sustainability, as a career is really coming to the forefront. So I think it's great that we're going to incorporate it in not only just being sustainable as a district, but incorporating that into the education for the kids, because they're going to get a head start on a career opportunity potentially just by the exposure to what we're doing within the district. So again, thank you for all the work that you guys are doing with this project. Looking forward to hearing more about it. Yeah. Okay, so next up we have a written report in your board packet and also a presentation on equity update.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. I'm happy to present on our progress with equity.
Hey, I was going to say, introduce yourself for the camera.
Absolutely. I'm Steve Thomas. I'm the Associate Superintendent of Teaching and Learning with Equity here at Wilson. I'm going to try to use the two-handed method to do this presentation. So I'm going to take us over a little bit of a walk through some of our initial equity work that started actually just before COVID. If we can kind of recall back, we started with an equity and inclusion committee that helped to develop a statement. We helped to define what equity was, what inclusion was, as well as a statement about what we believe with people coming into our district or interacting with our district and our community. We then incorporated that into Woodland Board Policy 130. We also worked specifically with Roger Moriano, who's on the bottom there, and he came in and presented to all staff members about the history and impact of implicit bias. And he also connected us with a couple of other equity trainers that we had come in. And they work specifically with our educational staff on identity matters, meaning that obviously our identities are what people see of us as a small portion truly of who we are. And that larger portion often is obscure. So we want to certainly make sure that we're, as educators, we're connecting with our students and understanding what are those identities beyond just what's visible. We also, then after that, we transitioned to a partnership with the Midwest and Plains Equity Assistance Center. They're a federally funded agency. They're one of, I think, 4 different federally funded agencies that help to support school districts in their work with equity. Also, we did some modifications to our recruitment and selection process. Some of that was through some of the work with Midwest and Plains. Also, some of it was some of the work that Dr. Gutierrez had brought to us in her experiences. So we adjusted, we expanded some of our recruitment pieces, but more importantly, we included this mandated unconscious bias techniques training, which is now a requirement for anyone who works with in the interview process throughout the district. So if you're on an interview panel, you still have to be trained. If you're an administrator, you still need to be trained to participate in any kind of hiring process. We also, if you may recall, we incorporated equity review process as part of our curriculum material adoption. So the last one you may recur that we just had was My View and We This Young. And specifically, a colleague of mine, I think Elizabeth Sanchez-Pezzi, had put together all the data we collected from that publisher to really look at what are the different races and identities of those characters that are in the literature within the materials we're purchasing, as well as what about the authors and the authenticity. So what about starting with January of this year? So we, within COVID, we did what we could do, but starting January, we kind of got back onto our work specifically. And that included, we started out with a senior administrative team participating in the Beyond Diversity training, which is Glenn Singleton's Courageous Conversations training. So that was senior admin. So it was everyone from Dr. Casey through our school principals, as well as department heads throughout the district. Also, in January through May, and actually even a little bit earlier, we incorporated an equity brief, which is something Dr. Walls had used in a different district, I think suggested here, for us to have, it's a 10-minute equity topic that we have at each of our leadership team meetings back in that time. And then we would follow up with that after the end of the day, late afternoon, for anyone that wanted to talk further about that topic. Topics can include things from just going through our definitions of what equity and inclusion are, to microaggression work, to people first language, to a variety of other topics. In February, thanks to the board support, we actually then hired, I can say hired, but it's really provided 9 stipends for some of our current staff members to become equity leaders in our district. And those individuals, Dr. Wald, Elizabeth Sanchez-Pezzi, and I really helped work with their orientation toward the end of last school year, as well as basically guide their work now this year as well. In June, then we expanded our Beyond Diversity training. We expanded that to the rest of the admin team that had not participated in January, as well as it opened it up to all staff. We were able to get about 75 to 80 people max. That was what that's what our presenters had put as a maximum. We pretty much got to that point when we got into 50 staff members, equity leaders, as well as the admin. We were in that mid-70 range. So it was a pretty busy and active training. That's virtual. It's about an hour. It's about a day and a half training. So we get to do Beyond Diversity now virtually. So how about this school year? So this school year, we continue our Beyond Diversity trainings. Just this week, actually, we had our 3rd now session of Beyond Diversity training, where we had about 30 participants. Again, it's about a day and a half of that training. We were also then planning on scheduling, we got dates specifically targeted for April of 2022, as well as June at the end of the school year. I will say just in general, we're finding it's difficult for some teachers to want to participate. They have a lot going on, as we all can probably understand that. And they're feeling like, hey, I don't know if I can do this one thing now. So we want to make sure we had an opportunity to do it after the end of the school year as well. We've continued our relationship with Midwest and Plains Equity Assistance Center. And for those of you that may recall, we started a process called the ECAP. And we actually did that when, that mid-March 2020, we basically had to stop. We tried to then restart this process just last year, but really after going through what kind of information we needed, we really wanted to wait until students were truly back in session before we started collecting data. So an ECAP is the Midwest and Plains Equity Center, kind of like an audit or an equity evaluation. It gives you kind of like a point in time. How are you doing on your equity work? What work do you need to do? And help us really develop some goals and how to move forward with our work. It's, while there's data collection that's done by a team here, the ECAP, the staff at the Midwest and Plains Equity Assistance Center actually facilitate a meeting making session. And right now we have that targeted coming up in January. But that's really where we take all that data and put it together into something that's meaningful. Here's an example of the different type of data that we're collecting. So there's classroom observations going on, and as part of that, there's also a teacher interview piece. Those are all very scripted, all very clearly defined as what happens during those pieces. There's an environmental walkthrough, and then we have a variety of surveys. We have a 6th through 8th grade student survey. We have a specific parent and caretaker survey, there's a staff survey, and then there's an administrator survey. All that's being collected, hopefully will be good to go by mid-November-ish. The center will then organize all that data, put it into something that's understandable for a team of about 25 people or so in that meeting session. And again, we're projecting that to be around January. Also, what's happening with our equity leaders is that they're developing culture and identity awareness presentations. And I have a link that's in the written report there. You can take a look. You can see actually the presentations that they've done, as well as some of the other backup materials. As well as, if you'd like, there's the reporting of one of the presentations that they did. So you'll be able to see that at any of your own times if you'd like to. That's the work by equity leaders now is being facilitated by, again, Dr. Walls, Elizabeth Sanchez-Pezzi, Risa Cohen, and myself, is we try to really help to kind of foster what it is that we're working on and how to make that connection with students and, or really with staff, not students yet, but really with staff. We've scheduled our equity presentations, the cultural identity awareness presentations, basically mostly on school improvement days. But again, the focus is just on staff this year. We had a conversation, what do we want to do, what are we trying to accomplish, and we really felt like it's most important for our staff to understand what it is we're talking about with identity and culture. This is what would be typically found on one of the presentations, but I want you to really obviously focus more on the bottom two elements here. That's really where we're trying to obviously foster some thought and reflection by the staff. We're looking at specific correct vocabulary, terminology, and things that can be perceived as being offensive, microaggressions, and bias when interacting with students, parents, and colleagues. Those are really important pieces and pieces that we definitely want people to walk away from. We do use a survey tool to measure how student or staff's understanding of a particular area before we before the presentation as well as then after the presentation, and we're seeing obviously some very good movement in that. People are talking about how specifically they learned quite a bit. These are a list of the ones that are that we're currently addressing. And now this list, you may have seen this in other ways, shapes, or form. We actually, I think, took this from the Library of Congress, is where we first saw this, as well as in other national places. The Hispanic Heritage presentation was the one we just did a little bit ago, as well as ability awareness. And we'll be moving into Native American Heritage in the month of November. You can see the other ones as well here. And then moving into the second half of the year, we have Black history, specifically women's history, Arab American Heritage, Asian Heritage. And June is a pretty busy month. We have Immigrant Heritage, Refugee Awareness, and Pride Month, all kind of in the June month. So that's pretty much what we'll be focusing on with our equity work there. As well as we've continued our work with diversification for recruitment. As you know, we've kind of mentioned before, our student population has risen really to now where it's equal to our Hispanic population is equal to our white population within the district. And so as a result, really we need to make sure that we're diversifying when we're looking at recruitment. It is some of the most difficult staff members to hire are those with Spanish language abilities. So we've expanded that out. The HR department is now up to 50 different diverse professional organizations and recruitment agencies that they use. And again, we want to make sure that those recruitment agencies also match the identities and cultures within our district. And Human Resources is also using a lot of social media as well to help promote positions within the district. I always should say outside the district. And then a tool that I believe that the board did use, the EST team or the department heads also use, which is the Illinois Association of School Boards Educational Equity Assessment. 3 of us looked at the results from that from the EST team, Martha Gutierrez, as well as Dr. Walls and myself, and I should say. And we have been looking at that and talking with our EST team about how to ensure that our equity conversations and our decisions are all fostered within that equity work that we really responded to within that assessment. So that is a summary of our equity work. And if any questions or anything you do at home?
Questions, board members?
Good work.
Thank you. And again, we've got a lot of great people on this team that are all helping out. Dr. Maychek as well as many others, Dr. Casey. So it's really great to have a great team of us all working together. Thank you.
Yeah, great update. Thank you.
Thank you.
Get back to the agenda. Next up in your packet is a written report on middle school solar. Are there any questions regarding the middle school solar report? Hearing none, we'll move forward with an annual, also in the packet, we have an annual written report from the Human Resources Department. Any questions or comments on that report? Then next up, we have a written report and also a presentation on the tax levy certification for truth in taxation. So turning it over to Mr. Bobeck.
Good evening, I am Chris Wobick, I'm the Associate Superintendent of Business Services. It is tax levy season. This is the tax levy certification presentation. Schedule of events, we had the Finance Committee meeting on the 12th of October. We talked a little bit about the levy charge presentation. We typically do that before we actually have the tax levy certification. Our board meeting tonight, we'll go through the presentation, and then we'll post Truth in Taxation legal notice 7 to 14 days prior to the tax hearing, which will be at our November board meeting on the 18th. After we adopt the levy, then I have until the final Tuesday in December to file. That would be December 28th. Typically what I'll do is I'll file it the day after we have our board hearing. We don't want to run into any issues. This is a slide I always have. It kind of breaks down what we're talking about when we're talking about levy season. We have an operating levy, which is a portion that the district requests. It covers all of our operating costs. It covers our salaries, our benefits, our supplies, our purchase services. This piece of the levy, our request basically, is covered under the property tax extension limitation law, which we'll get to on the next slide for the new board members who haven't heard this, and then obviously with the public at the next board meeting. The second piece of the levy is the bond and interest extension. We've already issued bonds. We've submitted everything to the county. The county, on our behalf, goes ahead and levies all of the principal and interest payments that we'll need for a particular year until all of our bonds come due. That part is not covered under the property tax extension limitation law. So you can have a bond in a particular year, goes from $5 million in bond and interest payments to $25 million, and the amount that property or the public and the community, their property taxes would increase at a rate that would go well over 5%. Fortunately, we don't do that here. Property tax extension limitation law in 1992, it went into, that's when it was first developed. It basically says you can levy up to CPI or 5%, whichever is lower. They wanted to put a cap on how much school districts could levy. Not every county abides by the property tax extension limitation law. We in the county do. I do on this presentation slide, I show you what our CPI is. As you can see, we generally don't come close to 5%. There was one year when we hit 4.1%, and guess what happened the following year? We hit 10.1%. So the little chart at the bottom shows how it goes up and down and up and down. And it's the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, that is December. So December always has a way of, towards the end of the year, oil prices go down and then it dips a little bit. In the formula, we have to use our equalized assessed valuation. Here at Woodland, we are estimating this year that will be about around $1.75 billion. That's an increase of 2.02% over the previous year. And we're also estimating $12.87 million in new construction. We call these estimates because we typically won't know until the spring, usually around March or April, what all of the final numbers are. So we have to use a little bit of an evaluation when we go ahead and calculate how much we think we're going to get and how much we're actually going to try and levy for. At $1.75 billion, you're not quite up to where you used to be. When we had the big economic boom and the big housing boom, you were closer to $2 billion, just below that. The calculation, you use your prior year's extension. You use the December CPI from the previous year. You multiply those together, divided by the EAV minus your new construction. We know our prior year's extension. We know the December CPI from 2020, which was 1.4%, which is below the average of the last 20 years and the last 10 years. And then we estimate our EAV and we estimate our new construction. We come up with our limiting rate once we plug in all of the numbers. You can see right down, oops, that's not it. That is definitely not the laser pointer. That's definitely not the laser pointer either. Right down here. That's what everything comes to when you plug in all the new numbers, and this was our prior year extension. This is what we believe we're going to get versus what we got the previous year. And that doesn't include the CEDAW IMRF levy, which we do every year, nor does it include our debt payments, which is our principal and our interest payments. We go to the next slide and we can break down our extension. We have to break everything down by fund. Left-hand side of the screen is exactly what we got last year. This is what we're gonna request in the yellow column. There we go. Well, the pointer sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't, so I'll just go with the colors system on here. As you can see, we're actually, if you look at the percentages in the yellow column, you can see that we're looking to levy 4.89% for our operating funds, along with our CDL IMRAP, which is well above the 1.4% that we said that we have for our CPI, which is generally about where you land, and minus the new construction. The new construction law will give you a little bit more. You add your bonding interest, and then the total levy comes up to 4.55%, just as the request, the ask, plus the bonds. You go a little bit further to the right-hand side, you'll see what we actually believe we're going to get. We're going to get, if you look at the percentages, closer to 2.15%. Why is it not the 1.4%? Well, obviously we have new construction, and the formula kind of comes up. It's brand new taxes that come onto the system, so it's brand new money. And then when you add in the bond and the interest portion, you can actually see it's about 1.96%. So in the grand scheme of things, for the 2021 levy, we're going to be below where we are on average. And when we talk about the levy, we talk about the vast majority of where we get our new dollars. The vast majority comes from the levy. It does not come from federal grants. It does not come from state grants. Those generally remain flat. Obviously, ESSER is a little bit different situation. So what do we do if we were going to be levying above 5%? If we expected to receive above 5%, we put a truth in taxation public notice in the paper. We are going to be levying below the 5%, but just as a general practice, just for transparency purposes, we put the notice in the truth in taxation publication in the Daily Herald at the approved time. We're tentatively scheduled for November 8th. We want to make the public aware this is what we're doing. We want to let them know that we're actually having a hearing, and everybody's free to come out to the hearing and ask questions. And this is basically the purpose for this meeting tonight, is to make you aware of what's going in the paper tentatively on the 8th. Do you have any questions about the tax levy, or upcoming tax levy hearing?
Board members, questions?
Okay, hearing none.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Great presentation, thanks, Chris.
Next up, we have the auditor report for FY21 from the accounting firm Evans, Marshall and Pease. That's a written report. Do you have something to add?
Good evening, Board of Education. My name is Chris Scalette. I am a CPA partner with Evans, Marshall and Pease. My responsibility is to issue an audit opinion on the district's financial statements. The audit went very well this year, as I did not run into any audit, reporting, or internal control issues. The district received a clean audit opinion, or an audit term with an unmodified audit opinion. The district's financial profile score that's given by ISB for fiscal year 2021 was a 3.7 out of 4. This score basically gives an overall summary of the district's finances as a whole. Slight decrease from last year, however, the overall financial profile designation remained consistent with last year, which would be recognition. The score of recognition is the highest category of financial strength that a district can receive in the state of Illinois. This score reflects the district's strong commitment to continuous improvement, financial health, and consistency. This score also symbolizes the outstanding job that Chris does, the entire business department on an ongoing day-to-day basis, and then is a great representation of the board's oversight. So I really do would like to thank the district for their continuous hard work. And I always like to tell the board that my firm does roughly 30 schools within, I'd say, the Collier counties of Chicago, and Woodland's one of my top. Get in, and get out, makes my job very easy. So very well organized, and it's just always a pleasure to come here. So I'm going to keep it brief, and if the board has any questions for me, I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you. Board members, questions? Okay, I appreciate the presentation and the report and also the accolades about the finance department.
I did not pay him to say that. Thank you.
Okay, have a great evening.
Take care.
You too. Okay, next up we have written reports on the revised board policies. They're in your packet. Are there any questions on the revised board policies? Anything you see that you have questions about or would like a revision of? If not, we'll bring these back next month as an action item under consent for approval. Next up, you have written reports on the capital projects. Are there any questions or comments about those projects? Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward then to the, sorry, I lost track for just a moment. Next up then, we have a discussion on the joint annual conference, which is the formerly known as III conference. Is the Illinois Association of School Boards, School Superintendents, and School Business Officers, which makes it a joint conference. That will occur, and let me look on this. We have a date.
November 19th. 19th through the 22nd,
November
November.
19th through the 22nd. I think at this point, everyone that's going has signed up, correct? In the packet, you have the board policy on what can be expensed, mileage sheets, travel reimbursement sheet, and are there any questions about the III conference? Okay. Did you have questions for the board, Laura?
No, we just wanted to confirm, Laura has a packet that you'll be receiving at the November meeting with all of the paper information that you'll need, hotel information, your badges and those types of things. It is different this year because of COVID, so some of the night events won't be occurring. There's different COVID precautions that'll be happening. So we're looking forward to it. Carla and Brooke and I will be presenting this year. So we're looking forward to a great weekend.
Yep. Then the next step is the National School Board Conference, and that conference is being held April 2nd through the 4th, 2022 in San Diego. Are we presenting there? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're also presenting at the National School Board Conference in April. Are there any?
We put it on here only because of the early registration, so if people could look and decide, there is a price difference if we can get it in earlier, and I believe it closes December 15th for the early registration.
So if you're interested in going to that National School Board Conference, let Laura know. If you send an email to Laura, just letting her know, can you copy me also so that I know who's going as well. I'm sorry.
Just so that, can we have a confirmation on hotel we can stay in so that I make sure everybody gets in the same hotel? You were provided the hotel options in the packet?
Oh, yeah. So I think for this conference, though, you let them know you need a room and they kind of put you at a hotel.
No.
No? Because in the past, I've never gotten my choice.
It
was too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to be sooner we get it.
Early, but
yeah, if you give us a choice, then we can try to get it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We can do that. I've not had luck with that ever.
Well, do you have some that you prefer over others so that I can just go ahead and try and the same place we're going?
It's always good to stay at the headquarters hotel at these national conferences. So if we could get into the headquarters, I think that would be good, or the Hilton Gas Lamp Quarter. I've stayed there when I've gone for, I used to go there every year for a biology teachers meeting back in the day. But yeah, so I think that's another good one. But
Okay.
I would have to look at them. You know, Marriott's are always good. Yeah. But if we could get into the headquarters hotel, that would be great. Is there anyone that's interested in going? No?
Gotta check. Gotta get back to you.
It's the weekend it's during spring break. So it's like the Friday to Sunday, the last Friday to Sunday of spring break, Friday to Monday.
Monday, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, then we'll move forward in the agenda. Board improvements and operations. We talked about the resolution committee report. That's in our packet as well. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at the resolution committee reports, but so let me give you a little background. So when and I think, did I do this last month? I think I did.
We
right?
talked about it,
But
yes.
let me just repeat it, because I don't remember what I said, so I apologize. Basically, as a delegate to IASB, I will attend this delegate assembly. We vote on the resolutions in this packet. So how that happens is the IASB resolution committee has already met. They've decided what the body, the Illinois Association of School Boards, what resolutions they plan to adopt or do not adopt, and work then with the legislators to either impact legislation, future legislation, or change legislation, or just have a statement whether it's going to our state legislators or the national legislators, federal legislators. This is all part of the packet. When we get to the delegate assembly, they will vote on a slate based on what they've already adopted. If we decide we don't want to vote for that slate, then we have some by consensus that our board would want to pull out, then we would have the opportunity to pull those out if we feel strongly about them, or we just vote with the slate. Most of the time, most everything is done by consent agenda. So there's not a lot of discussion. Looking through the packet, I think, and based on some of the emails that I've gotten from other school boards, there's a couple of controversial ones in there that I think they may pull out for further discussion. One is that child safe gun storage. That was a big discussion last year, and it's basically asking for a resolution to control how people store their guns in their houses. And I think that's why the resolution committee is against it, because they feel like that's not our job as board members to tell people how they do things in their own homes. And I think the other big issue, based on some emails that I've received so far, is it's the one, I'm gonna look for it really fast, but it has to do with the science of reading curriculum. So I think that might be a big issue. It came up last year, and it was a lot of discussion on it, and it was focused more on teacher training. But this year, the same resolution, they've kind of rewritten it. Now it's focused on what districts can do. So I think that's going to be another topic for discussion. But if you guys look these over, I don't know if you have questions so far. Okay, so look them over, and we're going to discuss it at the board meeting in November as well. So give you a chance to look it over so that when we go to III or the joint annual conference, I will have clear instructions on how I'm representing the board. Anything further on this before we move off the topic? Just to note that we do have three reaffirmations of our existing position on charter schools that IASB will continue to reaffirm, so hopefully they'll be voted in with this consent agenda. And if they don't, if someone pulls it out of consent and makes us defend our resolution, then I will have to stand on the floor and defend it and take questions from the delegates, and hopefully that won't happen. Most of the time in the past where it's happened where some district has pulled it, it's really just been a clarifying question, but it's still, your heart pounds because, you're hoping that people are not going to vote against your resolution. So hopefully that won't happen. They've been reaffirming this now for the last couple of years. So that's it for me.
Okay.
Okay. Then we will, again, this will come back up next month just to get some final instructions from you all on how you want me to proceed at the delegate assembly. Next up then, we have status of requests from board members, recap, future board items, and correspondence. Let's see, we have some correspondence in the packet. If you had a chance to look at it, is this okay? Let us know if it's okay to proceed, and if not, if you have recommendations for updating the correspondence, let us know that as well. Anyone? Okay. Next up, we have any FOIA requests?
There was-
do you want to handle that, Chris?
Sure. 2 FOIA requests, one from Heather Rand, received on 9/24, due 10/1, requesting minutes and video from the November 2018 governing meeting and minutes and video from the December 2018 governing meeting. Oh, that looks like it's in there twice. November and December governing meetings. Minutes and video from any special meetings held in December 2018. And the requester wanted the documents and videos emailed to their address. We actually partially filled it on 9/30, and then we couldn't fill the file. The file for the videos was too large, so the requester came to the district office and picked them up, or the Educational Support Center and picked them up. Second request from Kristen Lamanna, 10/8, due 10/15. Request filled on 10/14, requesting all receipts for travel and tickets purchased to attend the Starting Right and Equity Conference attended by El Casey last month, and all handouts and brochures received at the Starting Right and Equity Conference. And the third request was order details and receipt for IASB membership fee in 2022. This was delivered to the requester as well.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, comments regarding the FOIA request? Okie dokie. Any citizen statements? Okay, then can I get a motion to return to closed session to discuss the appointment, employment compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees and specific individuals who serve as independent contractors or specific volunteers of the district or legal counsel for the district, and including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor or a volunteer of the district or legal counsel for the district to determine its validity, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees, discussion of minutes. No, I don't need to do that one. Litigation, when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular district has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the district finds that an action is probable were imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting. Security procedures, school building safety and security, and the use of personnel and equipment to respond to an actual, a threatened, or reasonably potential danger to the safety of employees, students, staff, the public, or public property.
So moved.
Second. Roll call vote.
Cory?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Brianna?
Yes.
Carla?
Aye.
Joe?
Yes.
Lizzie?
Yes.
Renee? Motion carries 0.
So we have probably another hour of closed session to go through, and then we'll adjourn the meeting. If I don't think you guys want to hang around for an hour, but you're welcome to hang out and hear the public. If you're an administrator, I'm sure Dr. Casey has different instructions for
Yes,
you.
you may leave.
We take a quick bathroom break? Yeah, we'll take a quick, let's take a stretch break. Plan to start at 8:45.